Meet Harman. His journey began with two Skodas, the Laura and the Octavia 1.8 TSI. These were not just cars, they were canvases. Through meticulous tuning and relentless passion, Harman, along with other community members and tuners, transformed these humble rides into formidable contenders, capable of outpacing the elite of BMWs, Mercs, and Audis. It's a tale of transformation fueled by a community that drives not just cars, but dreams. In the second chapter, we explore Harman's recent ventures, Upshift Autos, which is a beacon for automobile perfectionists. Born from the grit of the garage and polished to studio brilliance, Upshift Autos isn't just about detailing cars, it's about redefining them. Here, every car is treated as a masterpiece, with each stroke of polish and each swipe of detail embodying the pinnacle of automotive artistry.
Note in India na, is in Indian market, the cheapest way to gain horsepower was to buy a Skoda.
Okay.
In reality, if I'm talking about pre-owned cars, I'm not talking about new cars. Even in new cars also, if you think of it, buying a 12 lakh rupee 160 horsepower Laura and compare it to buying a 180 horsepower A4 which used to cost almost twice or more than twice.
More than twice, huh?
It was the cheapest way to gain horsepower. Why? Because अगर उससे पहले का हम scale देखें, what would you do? You would put headers on a car. You would put an exhaust on a car. Maximum, if there was an ECU tune someone could do, you would get 5 horsepower of an NA car.
Correct. NA.
Turbos came to India with diesels,
Yeah.
but got perfected because of petrol turbos. Petrol turbos brought that limelight to the market because जितनों ने भी Lauras ली, उनमें से काफी, a lot of my friends, including Prithvi had a good set of cars in US. He had Evo.
So thanks a lot, Harman, once again. I mean, I think finally I got an opportunity to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah.
Honestly, बताऊं, I had heard from many people, including Addy and the camera guys, my camera boys, as I'd like to call them, कि यार अगर car enthusiasm के बारे में किसी से बात करनी है ना, किस आदमी से, talk to Harman, because I think recently Upshift has happened just towards the end of COVID, the fag end of COVID. But I think you've been associated with cars from the bottom of your heart since ages now.
Absolutely.
So I think my first question will be, we'll dive down to, because clearly you told me off camera your first project car.
Yeah.
What was it and what made it so special for you?
Firstly, thank you for having me here. It's a nice opportunity to get, speak to people who've got a knack of automotive journalism and a bit of that. A podcast is a nice way to express what you want.
मैं journalist नहीं हूँ यार.
नहीं आप positive journalism. So yeah, the first my project car was a VRS, not a VRS rather. It was a 1.8 TSI Laura. I picked up of a used Mahindra car dealership lot for 3 some odd lakhs. And my initial purpose wasn't to do anything to it. What happened was, so I had taken my Baleno to Arush for an ECU remap. Because there was a Pete's Tune discount thing going on. Let's just go and explore, see what it is like.
I remember that.
That was the first time I got into this. What is an ECU tune? What does it happen?
Acha.
So, while I was sitting there, I saw Prithvi.
Okay.
And my actually experience in a fast car, say a 300-400 horsepower car, was in Prithvi's Laura when he had gotten it cleaned from a workshop called T-Car Care near our house.
You're talking about the blue one?
The blue one, that's correct.
Okay.
So, that was my first experience to drive like a really fast car. I was young at the time. So Prithvi was really helpful. He's like, let me show you around, let me take you around for a ride. And that got into that, like it stayed somewhere in the heart. So when I went to Arush and I asked him, what is a good beginner car to, get into this thing where I can, maybe say do a little bit of it, take it around the track, see if I can have fun with it. So he suggested, let's go for a Laura. It's a good car. If you want a diesel, you can go for a Jetta 2 liter, which Akshay Jain at that time had made it. That full car.
I remember.
So I'm like, let's go with the petrol manual, I don't mind. And I looked forward, and Laura wasn't really that hard a car to procure anyways. So apparently we just wanted a car with a good mechanical history and not really much in cosmetic. Got a good deal. I got picked up the car. Now comes the point where I go and see and I meet Arush, and as it turns out, that so he was like, what do you want to do with it? Like, how far are you willing to take this along? And Prithvi at that time was, अरे इसको कोई problem नहीं है तो डाल इसमें जो डालने के सब डाल अरे बाबा तुम सब डालो And I got like, wait. Let's stick to that money principle. And फिर eventually we like कि let's do something like let's give it a good body kit. Let's do a good interior. Let's do some basic mechanical like a stage 1 ECU. Let's do all fluids change proper. पहले गाड़ी को running condition में रखते हैं. Let's do brakes. Let's do all of that. So it was a good decision on Arush's part to first make sure the car was running fine. Because obviously this is a car we had bought with just a small history from Skoda. But to make a car that goes fast and stops at the right time, we had to do something. So then we gave a car a nice full tune-up. We got the spark plugs changed, got the coils replaced, did a basic sort of a service maintenance, all of that. And then that is when I realized how expensive German cars were to just service. And then came to the part where the tunes and everything started working and like 30,000 here, ka-ching, 40,000 here, like money is really going down. And I was very young at that time, so ऐसा नहीं था कि I had pockets full of money. I had to ask money from home. But then eventually I started building it, and then as it turns out कि वो जो 2-3 लाख का estimate था वो 15-20 लाख पहुंच गया. And I got scared. मैंने कहा ये हुआ कैसे?
After a point of time you realize कि इसके लिए तो financial decisions खुद ही लेने पड़ेंगे.
Agreed. बिल्कुल. तो इसीलिए मैंने कहा कि let's start slow, let's do one thing at a time. And then also Arush was like, नहीं बनानी है तो एक ही बार बनाएंगे पूरी गाड़ी खोल के. Otherwise you will get bored क्योंकि you will be to like एक चीज करने आओगे. then मैं कहा no. Let's stick with that. But still also he convinced me कि एक ही बार में let's do everything.
बाद में तो अब जाके गाड़ी बेचने की तादाद में आ रहे हैं. 6 साल हो गए. अब क्या ट्यून करेगा?
बस उसने बोला कि एक ही बार बनाएंगे. But we'll do whatever is essential to it. We won't spend money on it where it's not required. जब वो शुरू करा उसने कॉस्मेटिक करा, he did the color, तब मेरे अंदर आई नेक्स्ट अब यार नहीं, I should have a nicer interior to sit also. Then I found a salvage this Laura diesel LNK. So that was the top end of that car. So the petrol never came in an LNK trim. So it never had electric seats, never had the steering wheel controls, never had all of that. So I bought that car, the front half of it, took out the seats, electric seats, took out the door cards, took out the steering, took out the dash car part, and put it on this car. And we got the thing running. We had no wiring for the electric seats, so obviously we couldn't do that. But we still got it running. Arush had some mechanical wizardry. He got the thing running, everything, even the memory seats were working at that time. And for that, on a Laura, Prithvi तो got told, like ये तो मेरी गाड़ी में भी नहीं है, manual seat लगी है मेरी so. But it was very nice. It was very fun.
Okay.
Then step 2 came कि अब क्या करने का मन है. मैं let's also make this a little good, like sound. Let's invest in a nice, sound system, get a nice head unit. अब head unit में भी different ranges थी. I went कि अब तो इसको let's go full baller, let's go like a full Discovery Pro from the Golf. And he's like, that's a very expensive head unit here, but we got a very good deal at that time. $50,000 we paid, and we got a pre-owned Golf head unit.
$50,000 is a good deal, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a 1.5 lakh rupee head unit.
Okay.
But whatever Arush said, I just agreed with him. So that happened. Then we did a full rainbow. Those time rainbow was really famous. It was really popular as plug-and-play audio upgrades.
I remember.
So we did a full rainbow setup on that car.
Okay.
फिर उसके बाद हमारा तब भी हमारे अंदर satisfaction नहीं आई वो चीज़ की. फिर अब क्या करें? Let's go for a set of custom rims. Then we custom ordered a set of 18-inch forged rims जो उस time पे I had seen on Octavia's S4. So Octavia had a bronze set of rims from BC Racing forged, and I got it like I like these rims. The Arush ने मुझे price हाँ.
Octavia was running on the same wheels all throughout, right?
No. Octavia has been running on the S4. Is still running on that BC Racing forged setup.
Correct. हाँ वही बात है.
Yeah. So he had been running that, and it was and being a forged rim was very strong. It was very durable. So he's like, chalo, let's do this also. Let's go with this. Then I realized the rims are exactly the worth how much I bought the car for, 3.5 lakhs. I'm like, okay. तब थोड़ा सा घबराहट होनी शुरू हुई कि like I think maybe we're too much into this now. But then we're like, now we've done it, let's screw it, let's do it. फिर हमने वो भी करा. फिर उसके बाद आरुष ने कहा कि अब इस गाड़ी में तो जो हो सकता था वो हो गया.
अच्छा.
Now I got disappointed क्योंकि अब वो frequent trips आने जाने बंद हो गए. अब गाड़ियों के लिए तो it was like such an excitement at that age because हर चीज़ नई आ रही है, हर गाड़ी हर पार्ट नया आता ही एकदम से मैं भाग के आता था दिल्ली से कि आरुष के पास पहुंचना है, ये हो रहा है. मैं तो कॉलेज टाइम्स कुछ भी हो, इट बी इट ऑफिस, आई वाज लाइक कि अरे पार्ट आ गया, चलो कैंसिल ऑल मीटिंग्स, लेट्स गो टू आरुष, लेट्स सिट देयर, लेट्स हैव अ पिज्जा, लेट्स डू सम मॉड्स. तो यही हुआ. अब बोर हो गए तो फिर अब करें क्या. अब यही चीज़ में फिर उस टाइम पे देयर वाज अ टाइम वेयर द VRS had been released. So आरुष bought a VRS very early. I think one of the first few batches he bought. Though he bought, and then I saw Bharat ji came in with the car, brand new at that time. Met him for the first time. तो So मैंने कहा, let's do something. Let me get a VRS. So now I've spent all my money on the Laura. I'm not gonna recover it back. What do I do? How do I convince my family to get me a VRS? I told them, मैंने कहा, see, if things work out, why don't you help me out and buy me out a VRS? Like, this is a certain amount of work we want you to do, and we'll contribute half of it. And I said, okay. And by chance की बात थी, there were limited amount of cars, they ran out. And I got disappointed. मैंने कहा, oh no, there's no car to buy anymore. I tried Jaipur, I tried everywhere. मैंने कहा, ये तो बहुत disappointing हो गया. So then eventually, there was so this became a hype when BBT, for its weirdest of time, had a car for sale at 21 lakh rupees just 3 months after the VRS got launched.
And a brand new one was how
A
much?
brand new, rather a pre-owned car, but it had only 3,000 kilometers on it.
No, what I meant is how much was a brand new one for?
30.
Acha.
30 was the on-road. 21 lakhs on a 3-month-old car. And I don't know what happened. I think it must have been a wrong price or whatever. But I told Arush I couldn't reach BBT enough in time. BBT used to be here, near the Gitoni metro station. मैंने कहा, Arush, मैं तो पहुंच नहीं पाऊंगा.
तू जाके ले ले.
तो please जाके इस पे गाना डाल दे और इस गाड़ी को at least lock कर ले. Put a deposit down, lock the car. Arush said, I can reach there in 20 minutes. 15 minutes before, I got a call from BBT saying the car's sold.
Oh,
And
shit.
that was a low point because of समझ ना आएगा. See, the entire fun of this was to buy that car impromptu, to do it. चलो, I didn't have money to do the merge, but I could have bought the car then, drove it around while stock. Everybody was driving stock at that time. तो ये हो गया disappointing. तो अब करे क्या? Then, as it turns out, अब कुछ तो लेना था, कुछ सोच के रखा हुआ था. So I had a friend in this. There used to be a Skoda dealer back in next to NSP only.
Acha.
I forgot the name. It was a dealer. He's now closed.
Okay.
So the dealer was very anxious. Like, there's a car, a lease return from a high up in Skoda that has just come back to me. It is a 1.8 liter TSI auto, but it's a Style Plus trim. So it's a new trim which has been launched just a couple of years back.
Okay.
So it has the CarPlay, it has the sunroof, it has the start button and everything. And I could give you a good deal on this. If you want to buy this car, it's only done 30,000 kilometers.
Okay.
मैंने कहा, okay, let me go have a look. I saw the car was in that maroonish, that maroon wine type of color.
Okay.
And very clean, neat car. It had a Gurgaon number plate on it. And it was really nice. It was comfy. There was no damage in the interior.
TSI में maroon आता था?
हाँ. Style Plus में आता था. So this was a very limited, rare sort of
I
a
saw
car.
the picture right now you were showing. I wanted to ask him. मेरे को याद ही नहीं, पता नहीं maroon तो देखी ही नहीं आज
बिल्कुल नहीं दिखी, but आई थी. Even ambient no models also came with that, but very rare, very few cars came in this wine green red color. When this happened, then obviously I was like, chalo, this car is very nice. Now I called Arush. I'm like, Arush, so what does it? How much would it take, or rather, how much headache would it be to convert this into an almost VRS? And I was like, why do you want that? I'm like, nobody. See, at this point of time, the car was relatively new, so nobody was selling VRSs. So there's no other way to get a car rather than to make my own.
Okay.
So this was a more like a BYOC, being my own car. So I'm like, okay, let's do this, but still tell me, give me a ballpark. He said, it'll cost you twice what you paid for the car, or what you'll pay for the car if you buy this.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, funny. Then I started negotiating the car's price down. I'm like, let me cut Arush from this conversation. Let me just try and see. I got the car for a good deal, a very fair deal. I mean, in today's time, you wouldn't be able to get a base Kushak for it. That good a deal.
Okay.
So we got the car. Now I've gotten the car, I brought it back to him. I'm like, for now, just do a stage 1 tune on it, just do a stage 2 TCU. At least let me drive around with that 100. It was 180 horsepower stock, 220 to 30, somewhat of that. So like, chalo, let's go drive around with it. So I had my BC Racing rims from the Laura. I swapped them. I put my small, tiny rims on my fully modded Laura for a while. Because I wasn't driving it anyways. Then I got a deal for that car. Some gentleman in Chandigarh wanted to buy it. And Arush facilitated the sale and I got sold of the car.
Okay.
So then the car came. Now we have money from the Laura. Now we have a car. Now what do? I did not even bother to pick up the money that was dropped at the Autopsyche store by the customer who bought the car.
Okay.
And I'm like, you put that money towards the credit note. And now I would like to buy more stuff and I would like to put it on the VRS. Octavia, sorry, 1.8. Then Arush is like, now are you sure this is something? So this wasn't a small project like the Laura where everything was plug and play and bolt-ons. This had to be a 3, 4, 5 month stretch on a project where the car had to be stripped for interiors, it had to be stripped for everything, new bumpers had to be bought, grills, a lot of things. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm fully committed to this. I'll do it. The parts you can source, you source. The parts you can't, I'll try. Because there were a lot of brands at that time. AliExpress was pretty much active at that time. So you could buy small things off AliExpress. Some Czech Republic parts suppliers were also there. So that is where we started doing it. Now we started compiling the list. It was from a 6-7 like a tier list to reaching almost 35, 36 different types of things that we need to replace on the car. Comes out to the biggest change and the most expensive part that had to be put on it was a TVS gearbox, which is a DQ200 to a 250 conversion to match the gearbox so that the car can run that higher output.
Okay.
So this was the entire thing. Why a VRS was being sold and why VRSs are considered to be tuner friendly is not because of the engine rather, but because of the gearbox. The gearbox on the 1.8 TSI were a weak link, which is why they weren't really good in making higher horsepower. So it's the same gearbox they were using in the Polo GT TSI.
Okay.
And so they were failing constantly. We had a very decent amount of failures in Indian market also, where every DQ200 used to fail because of heat, because of dry clutch.
Because I remember I had the superb 2-liter diesel.
Yeah.
उसका भी कोई Mechatron का issue था.
But that was still a DQ250. At least you had that. So the difference between a DQ250 and a 200 is now, a 200 is a 7-speed gearbox. The DQ250 is a 6-speed gearbox. So that was the difference. And it also was a wet clutch. So it could hold more power.
Okay.
So that was the biggest investment to do because you couldn't buy one off Skoda here.
Sure.
Because DQ250 for the diesel has a different gear ratio. The DQ250, as it turns out, you couldn't buy one in India because the VRSs were CPUs. They came in like what, 60, 80, 100 numbers.
Okay.
So the parts weren't there. So what do? So then we did some inquiries, did some work. So Arash was at that time the dealer of TVS.
Okay.
The tuning company.
Correct.
And TVS had launched a DQ200 to 250 conversion.
Oh.
8,500 euros and plus another 1,000 to 1,200 for a clutch.
Okay.
So it was a 10,000 euro expense. Now this is where things are really turning out to be very high. Things are getting heated. Now is this a 10,000 euro you'd want to spend on a 13,000 euro car? That was the point. That was to think of it. But then Arush told me very simply that if this mod is not done, then all the rest of the mods have to fall in line because none of them will work. The moment you will make good power, the gearbox will die.
Correct.
So the only actual investment in order to make this car even remotely close to a VRS is to put that gearbox in.
Okay.
So that was a tough pill to swallow. It took some time, but eventually I said, okay, let's do this. Even Arush didn't comprehend. Even Arush had the idea, but I don't think Harman's going to do this. But he's like, I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it for once and all. Let's see what we can do if you've been given a checkbook with, no amount written on it. And that's what happened. And we did a DQ250, brought it down, put it on the car. We did a Grigio Telesto, the Lamborghini version of Nando Grey, the darker grey. We did a full body refinish. We did a full black Alcantara interior to match the VRS. We did the imported 9-inch head unit, which never came to India, by the way. Still not. So it's still, I'm the only one currently who had a 9-inch full screen head unit on my VRS. And the first virtual cockpit, the first cluster to ever put in India. That was before the cars in India came with virtual cockpits.
Virtual cockpit as in what?
Is that the digital dash? So instead of the manual gauges, it had a full digital dash. So in 2019, I had a digital dash. In 2020, it came into India. Because I ordered it via part, and then there's a brand, you must have heard of Vactune, based in Kerala. So Vactune was primarily the reason a lot of my Laura and these retrofit mods, Vactune was the result. Vactune is the one who organized all of it. He has put the cluster, the first cluster he put, he was the first head unit. And at that time, there was not even enough to get it coded at the local dealer, because you can't do that.
Correct.
But it still worked. So we got make do with it. The cluster now is coded to a single car. So you can't really swap it among cars.
Okay.
So till today, the car might have been stripped, but the car still has the cluster running.
यार कुछ भी कह लो, एक मोटा चेक काटने तक डर लगता है. एक बार काट के दे दो सामने वाले को और उसको बोल दो कि भाई तू कर दे ना, मन सा हल्का हो जाता है.
Excitement और
कि हाँ बोल दिया, खर्चा कर दिया.
See, मैं agree करता हूँ. It was a bit of a childish sort of a thing, but I was a child at that time. I was young. If I hadn't done what I had done then, the entire idea to set up an own division, to set up a workshop, to do all of this wouldn't have existed, because you wouldn't have realized the realities of the market, how money, how everything is manipulated, how things are changed, so you wouldn't get an idea.
Absolutely.
So all of this adds on to the experience. Definitely an expensive experience, but it adds on to your experience in order to know what to do and what not to do for a customer who wants to get some work done.
I think that's the most important part of it, because only then you'll be able to, वो कहते हैं ना, अपने पाप खुद करो थोड़े से, तब जाके सामने वाले को you can tell him कि this is right, this is not right.
Absolutely.
Like Arush told you कि भाई rest all other mods would be a waste if you don't change this.
Absolutely. See, he gave me sound advice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say. See, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, Arush was really there to help me out at that phase.
I miss that man.
I absolutely agree. He had a vision at that time. He had a vision very early in this line where
Correct.
I think people in India didn't really, accept mods as a part of car culture. And for him to bring it down, to get Autopsyche, and for us to, in our childhoods to see those accents and all being built with Autopsyche, full flamethrowers.
Correct.
Then Kabir's accent back in time used to have that big, huge flamethrower used to go
Kabir's
about.
accent, Kabir's red RS, Octavia RS.
Yeah.
All of that.
All of that, added on to that, we got into the hang of it. Kabir's 330i, the best
330i, of
BMW
course.
looking period.
Yeah.
I still think that today, for the amount of carbon that was on the car, it was a beautiful car at that time. You see it, and even a normal looking M3 wouldn't excite you, but Kabir's car used to. It was 330i, beautifully built. And Kabir also did one favor for me back in time to basically light the match into my automotive enthusiasm. So I was at the same car care dealer, and Kabir was getting his M3 washed, and I'm like, 330i washed.
You've explained Kabir so well.
Yeah. I swear, उसने वही करा है. उसने he gave me that right input. He's like कि अब कुछ करना है तो फिर solid करना है, नहीं तो तब तक relax करना है. But he was very sound in advice. He's like कि you want to mod your car, go ahead, feel free, it's your money, it's your choice. बट इस चीज में घुसने से पहले याद रखियो कि ये ऐसा पिट है कि इसमें ऐसे पैसा जाता है और नीचे से निकलेगा भी नहीं, और जब गाड़ी बेचने जाओगे तो कुछ मिलेगा भी नहीं,
और तुझे दिखाई भी नहीं देगा जा कहाँ रहा है.
एंड दिस वाज द टाइम व्हेन ही क्रैश्ड हिज 330, तो उसने कहा मेरा तो बम हो गया. द एंटायर कार्बन एंड हिज कार वाज बिल्ट, एवरीथिंग, द कार्बन, द ऑडियो, द इंटीरियर मॉड्स, एवरीथिंग सब खत्म.
नहीं, you're right.
बट गुड टू थिंक इज दैट ही केम आउट अलाइव, एवरीथिंग वाज फाइन, सो इट्स गुड. उसने भी मेरे लिए एक बार डोनट मारा था मेन रोड कैलाश कॉलोनी में. मैंने कहा आई लाइक दिस, आई वुड लाइक someday I would love to do this too, but it turns out sometimes things happen. Yeah, see, dreams are made. I wouldn't say dream because I still have a lot more to go. But yes, things you can achieve if you have something in mind. See, for me, my parents are my blessing.
Yeah.
They've supported me all throughout. They knew everything. They used to keep a blind eye, thinking कि उनको लग रहा है कि इसको नहीं पता, मुझे लग रहा है उनको नहीं पता. That sort of a relationship. But it definitely helped me out. They got me into this. They supported me throughout. ऐसा नहीं है कि मुझे वो नहीं मिला, resistance नहीं मिली. I got resistance, but I got rightful resistance.
Sure.
So I realized कि हाँ कोई बात नहीं. There are certain limits you don't cross when you're putting money towards a certain product, a certain liability rather, if you say.
Correct.
हालांकि हम जैसे गाड़ी liability नहीं मानते, but reality तो यही है. See, to be very honest.
Interesting.
फिर VRS बनी, वो बनते ही it was a very very good project. Everybody loved it. Bharat ji, everybody saw the cars, everything which could have been. So basically आरुष ने वो गाड़ी ऐसे बनाई थी कि वो उसका चलता फिरता कैटलॉग था. अगर हम जाके बोलते ना कि hi, I would like to see the brakes, there are the brakes. Hi, I would like to see if there's a brake, there's the brakes on the car. Hi, I'd like to see a gearbox, no, उस गाड़ी में लगा हुआ है. सब कुछ उसी में लगा, तो वही दिखा दो ना एक बारी. एंड वो उसके पास ही थी उस टाइम. तो उसने कहा मेरे लिए एक्चुअल का एक कैटलॉग था. कहते मैं इस गाड़ी को अगर स्प्रेड करूँ ना तो मैं उस सारे पार्ट्स को इंडिविजुअली मेंशन करने बैठूँ जो चेंज हुए हैं. कहते सबका मॉड निकल जाएगा, जिसका एक मॉड निकल जाता है. एंड व्हेन दैट कार गॉट डिसमेंटल्ड रादर, मतलब उसको स्टॉक लाया गया. आई थिंक 15-20 people had mods on their cars because of that car. Somebody took the tail lamps. Vikas bought the gearbox to put it on his A3 1.8. तो he had the DQ, he swapped the DQ to 50 for that. तो उस गाड़ी ने बहुत गाड़ियाँ बना दी. वो गाड़ी जब स्टॉक हुई and उसके बाद आरुष kept it for a while and then आरुष sold it to somebody. And but वो गाड़ी एक बहुत अच्छा lesson था into realizing कि how big and how depth of that car modification process is. There's not a certain element you can change. You can change an entire car. और मैं तो बहुत छोटा था इस स्केल में, क्योंकि I realized that when I saw things abroad and I used to think people used to swap RS3 engines into the Octavias. तो हम तो उस रेंज में कहीं गए नहीं, हम तो उस स्केल में इंडिया में आए ही नहीं कभी कि हम इंजन स्वैप्स करें. इंजन स्वैप्स became prevalent 2-3 years back. उससे पहले तक इंजन शॉप्स कुछ नहीं थे लोगों को.
Tell me one thing. According to you, I mean, because this was your second Skoda,
Yeah.
and you have owned WAGs after that
Yeah.
also. But one thing I want to ask: why do you think Skoda Octavia and Laura, VRS and TSI, these cars, they became so popular in terms of not even in India, I
Yeah.
mean even abroad, across
Yeah,
the globe. Whoever wants to go crazy on numbers and tuning and wants to go on track or whatever it is, people were going gaga over these Skodas. What was it according to you about them that made them so sort of their infrastructure so strong they could handle like crazy numbers up to 600 horses?
Absolutely. See, biggest thing to note in India na, is in Indian market, the cheapest way to gain horsepower was to buy a Skoda.
Okay.
In reality, if I'm talking about pre-owned cars, I'm not talking about new cars. Even in new cars also, if you think of it, buying a 12 lakh rupee 160 horsepower Laura and compare it to buying a 180 horsepower A4 which used to cost almost twice or more than twice.
More than twice.
It was the cheapest way to gain horsepower. Why? Because अगर उससे पहले का हम scale देखें, what would you do? You would put headers on a car. You would put an exhaust on a car. Maximum, if there was an ECU tune someone could do, you would get 5 horsepower of an NA car.
Correct. NA.
Turbos came to India with diesels,
Yeah.
but got perfected because of petrol turbos. Petrol turbos brought that limelight to the market because जितनों ने भी Lauras ली, उनमें से काफी, a lot of my friends, including Prithvi had a good set of cars in US. He had Evo, he had all that. He had done all that R&D, he had done turbos. He knew how cheap it was as compared to before to gain 200 horsepower.
Yeah.
इंडिया में जब वो मार्केट सबसे तो इंडिया में जो सबसे पॉपुलर टर्बो कार मैं मानता हूँ, इट इज अ पोलो GT TSI.
Oh, okay.
बिकॉज पोलो GT TSI इतनी एक्सपैंड हुई, इतनी मास मार्केट में गई. टुडे इफ यू लुक एट इट, Laura pre-owned buying was also a tough call. Why? Because the expenses, the maintenance and all of that. Polo came at a point where at 10 lakh rupees you could get a car worth 100 horsepower. It's very nice. Aftermarket support was abundant. मतलब कोई कमी नहीं है. You can get tail lamps, headlamps, works, everything.
Correct.
And then it became accessible for people to get 130, 40 horsepower, which used to be earlier car Accords.
Correct.
140, 150 horsepower की Accord आती थी. Now everybody, every kid, every young guy had 120, 140 horsepower beneath their pockets.
Correct.
ड्राइविंग मैनर्स हो ना हो, स्किल हो ना हो,
ऑलमोस्ट
पावर
दूसरे बंदे की पोलो TSI मेरे को भी याद है देख के यार, स्टेज 1 तो कर ही रखा होता था.
स्टेज 1 तो मिनिमम था. अगर किसी ने GT TSI, if somebody has paid that premium of 2 and 2.5 lakhs to buy a GT TSI from a standard car, then he's done it for the sole purpose of modding it. स्टॉक रखने के लिए बहुत कम लोगों ने ली, बट हाँ मॉड लोगों ने, पृथ्वी ने करी, कितनों ने करी, प्रतीक की डीजल, such a hoon, that beautiful car. He put a Jetta का turbo on it. The car was a riot. It used to flow so around, black smoke coming out of it.
The car was a riot, the driver was even a bigger riot. Is even a bigger riot.
He absolutely is. And he did such a good job at putting, and Autopsyche guided him around.
Yes.
And it was a very good project. Because it became so accessible to buy a 7 lakh rupee car to get 180 horsepower, almost equivalent to that, put some nice suspension on it and drive around the track very fast.